We've all gotten the live stream. You should have all gotten the live stream notification. Dave, begin anytime you want.
We did. Okay, let's call the Franklin Township Planning Commission meeting September 1st. Call it to order at 7:03. Paul, are you all right with attendance, or should I try to guess who's on the?
So I'll just note that you, Mark, Chuck, Jessica Adams from LTL, Pete was here. Yeah, he's there. And then myself and Dave Gerstenhaber are in attendance currently.
Okay, great. I don't have the agenda up in front of me, but I think the first order of business is any public comment. Being none would be review and approval of the August meeting minutes.
I actually don't see the agenda.
I have the agenda. Do you want me to share this? I can do that.
That actually might be a nice.
Right, hang on. I'm going to share. Put something here. That's fine.
Mark or Chuck, did you have any comments?
You're trying to share anything on that screen?
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna have to.
I didn't have any comments. I read through them. They look good to me.
Yeah, I didn't have any comments either.
You can X out of that. X out of that window. You can X out of that window.
Well, yeah. Trying to run two computers at once is not.
Would either of you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the August 4th minutes as.
I'll second.
All right, any comment or additions? Thanks, Paul. Being none, all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed signs. Next is a solar ordinance discussion. And that is good that we got the agenda up.
So I have on my computer the last edited ordinance, which was a PDF and a doc file, which I think looks clean. Do you want to see any of these?
What was submitted to us, I don't know whether it's PDF or doc, but I think the last comments were Chuck's in blue. Is that correct? Do you think, Chuck?
I believe so. Yeah, that's what he sent out.
And if I can just, if there is anybody else that joined, but even for Dave to be able to communicate with the supervisors, is what we came up with is really trying to be favorable to the resident and small business owner that's trying to use and assess the solar energy as an accessory use, and knowing that there will be new types of designs down the road, and that we can't include all the possible ideas for the next 20 years, say, and instead of requiring the accessory use applicant to go through a conditional use, that they could come before the supervisors, and the supervisors could approve their application if it didn't comply with what is in the ordinance by resolution, instead of requiring them to go through conditional use. Parallel to that, or corollary to that, is that a primary use would go through the conditional use process so that it could be, maybe lack of better description, more scrutinized, and then, but still within that conditional use, particularly when it comes to decommissioning, I think we got some really good wording from Guy Donatelli that allows us to address financing decommissioning in different ways, instead of trying to anticipate how each potential applicant could come up with money to so that the township's not strapped with the cost of decommissioning a large solar array. Chuck, I know Mark, I don't think you were at the last meeting, but feel free to add anything to that, and Chuck, if you have anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, that's accurate.
Yeah, and I think when we had, the progression of this, the board sent you kind of a stripped down solar ordinance, and we said, okay, take one pass, take a look at this. And so I appreciate you landed pretty much where the board was thinking. We wanted to make sure we weren't trying to predict the future, right? We wanted to have an outlet for residents to use the latest technology and not be beholden to whatever we wrote back in 2022. So that's good. My one question that I have is, I think the original wording in the document was something like, we had this get out of jail card where if you wanted to do something that wasn't prescribed in the actual ordinance, you could go through and meet with the board and have a hearing, or I don't know if the right word is a hearing, but have a discussion about what you wanted to do, why it wasn't conforming to the initial ordinance, and then we could decide, well, maybe the PC should look at it, or this seems like a no-brainer, we can just move ahead and approve this. Was that missing in the document that you received and you reviewed?
It's
It
in
sounds like
there
you
now.
added something.
It's in there now.
All right, that's okay.
It's in there now, and in the original document, if I remember back, they would have had to go through conditional use.
Okay. So,
Yeah. Good.
oh yeah. So can you explain to me why you wouldn't want somebody to go through conditional use?
So anybody with a primary coming in as a primary use, the purpose of their solar system, solar energy system, is to sell to the grid. The size of them exceeds their use by X amount, but a substantial amount that it's not justified by, I guess, previous electricity records and everything. They need to go through conditional use.
Right.
The homeowner, as an example that we tossed around over the last 6 months or so, wants a solar array tree. I don't know if you saw any of these. That does not comply with this ordinance. So if somebody wanted to put 2 solar array trees in the back of their yard, they would first approach the zoning officer, and he would say this doesn't comply with the ordinance, and possibly get any input from Pete, and then they would say, with comments, come before the supervisors at a regular meeting. And if the supervisors agreed with their plan, saying this is still within our concept of what we thought second or accessory use solar arrays, that's what we thought may come about 5 years ago when we wrote the ordinance. We passed a resolution as a board of supervisors and approved this system. Still, that solar array system is made to augment their electric use from the grid, or to replace. And when even in our ordinance, it says with excess, it can go back into the grid.
Right. So yeah, and I think you landed where we wanted you to. I think one of the confusion was, and maybe I apologize, is I thought we had wording like that when we handed it to you, and then maybe you got an unmodified document, but I'm glad that you got to where you are. So I guess the question is, why not have them come to the PC first to just say here, like, so, like any other, yeah, I guess I'll just ask it this way. Why not have them come to the PC first and say, hey, we're doing something brand new. And and have you guys look at it first before you go to the PC to make your suggestions.
One of your, I'll phrase it a different way. A supervisor said, no, they want to have crack at it, not send it to the PC.
Okay. I mean, we can always send it to the PC, right? We can always decide as a board to do that.
Yes.
I think, I don't know if we can decide tonight or give a either or option.
Well, it's going to come back to the board to decide. Like,
Right.
we can always reword it. So regardless of what one of the board members said, what does the PC feel? Do you guys support that concept where it would just go directly to the board for approval, or it goes through the PC first and then goes to the board?
I feel it might be too much. That would mean that
Okay.
they need to go to two boards for something that may be very, very simple.
Okay. Would the PC have the authority to approve something like this?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
That was
All right. That's fine.
yeah.
I mean, I'm asking all the questions that pop into my head. So, that's fine. I mean, I think then it sounds like the PC is okay with not having the residents come to the PC. I'm okay with that. So we can stick with the wording as it is.
I mean,
I'm
I
okay
just-
either way. I mean, I think Chuck would always have something good to lend a hand in terms of design of something alternative to just tiles, but
Well, again, I don't want to make it complicated or confusing for a resident. Just saying, hey, if you want to do something that's a little different, just come to the board and talk to us. Seems like it's nice and clear. You
Yeah.
know? So,
it's going to end up with you eventually anyway.
right, that's right. And if it seems wonky, we can always say, you know what, let's whatever. So, yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. So nice job. Nice job. I think it does exactly what we wanted to do.
great. So with that being said, I know Chuck, you've read through it a few times. I had just some few, I'm trying to scroll up on my screen on this. Nowhere in particular, but also to get any input from you, Paul, and did any other PC member or alternate join in?
Well, Pete, do you agree with those
Yeah,
blue comments? Or
Yeah,
did you have something in mind? I just couldn't think of anything, so I just put it down.
No, again, I had the original starting point from the last meeting, and then I was out on vacation, as a couple of you are aware, and then I know there was some staff discussions internal, and I think, Guy might have made one or two edits with Jeff, and then your final edits here or comments in there. So no, I don't see any issue with them. Obviously, somebody just has to
Paul, can you go back up?
finalize the letter, the text to get to the board then.
Forgive me, I'm scrolling through this because I'm comparing two different versions. And I'm just trying to make sure that everything I'm seeing in one version is in the other. Yeah, so this version that you're seeing currently appears to unify everything.
And
Can
I'm
you
going to,
go to the first page, because we don't want the blue stuff in there, obviously.
Well, I mean, you can just make a note that the blue comments should be removed before submission to the supervisors.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
cleaner
blue comment-
version.
My blue comment relates to the red cut,
Right. So all the red stuff, bear with me a sec. Let's see if I can switch this. All right, so this ordinance, this copy lacks the blue stuff. Although I just noticed something here.
Did it take out the red?
We
stuff?
have some free-floating letters in this ordinance. At the end here, see this H and I? But if I get this back up to the top, you'll see all that, the changes have been made in this one.
No, still says freestanding.
You're right, you're right. All right, so we're gonna have to go with the other one. Let me go back.
You can just approve it without blue, but with the red
Yeah,
And yellow.
and yellow. Yeah.
I mean, approve it with all the changes, but note that the comments in blue should be removed. Because that's what you're dealing with here.
Yeah.
So I have two typos, I think that,
Yeah, do you remember where they are, Dave? I can try and see if they're in this.
this is the one I read, so I don't think they have been made. Page, it's number 8 on primary use.
Okay, this is
so you want to go up?
principal.
Right there. I think in accessory use, we have shall not entail reshaping, and so just to put shall in front of not.
Okay.
Kind of minor.
I don't know if I can, it'd be interesting to see if I can edit this fruitfully or not. Just note these changes in the, it's gonna be simpler.
Yeah. Do we have someone taking minutes?
We're being recorded live, so this
Okay.
is all on a video, so it will record that. So this version is the version with the blue editorial comments, with the blue comments, which is the one that shows all the current changes, but lacks the 2 changes you need to have made.
Right, so the 2 changes were number
Wait a
8.
sec. So that would be page 4, item 8. Not entail should be altered to shall not entail, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the second item?
Page 8, section 16, DI, is it?
D1, yeah.
Yeah, D1. I think it's useful, right now it's useful like. At the end
Life,
of that
correct.
first
So,
line.
so on page 8, item 16, subsection D, subsection I, life. No, this says useful.
The
No, the
second-
second one.
Second useful,
Keep going down further.
Oh, yeah,
You
I see.
another-
Okay. So right. So just to repeat, page 8, section 16, subsection D, subsection I, the useful like should be changed to the second occurrence of useful life.
And Dave, what I can do is, I'll just, if it's okay with the board, so to speak, I can notify Guy, who I believe was the last creator of the edits, and just give him those 2 updates and tell him with the other changes, so he would be in the position to make like the final copy pretty quickly. But I can shoot him an email tomorrow if this goes tonight, and that way that would be taken care of.
I'd be happy with that. Yeah,
Okay, no
Can
problem.
I just make a suggestion that somebody does a spot proof of the version that we're looking at against what comes out?
Sure, I'm
That's
sure
Guy.
Guy will do that by default, but I'll mention that.
Yeah. just because there's a lot going on here.
Oh, yeah. No problem.
All right, anything else that we can work on this, or do we feel we're ready for a motion to recommend approval?
I'm ready for a motion.
Either of you like to make one?
Do we have a cheat sheet?
No, we didn't know what we were gonna end up with tonight. But
So you need some help with the motion?
I can,
Should be straightforward.
this is the draft that was submitted for our agenda.
So I think the only caveat is, it's gonna be, you're going, I don't know if you're gonna send this draft or you're going to accept all these changes and send us a clean draft for review. What's that? What have you decided?
Clean.
Yeah, it'll be clean. You
All right.
wouldn't- I mean, if the supervisors want to see all the changes, they can ask for it, but
Yeah. That's right. I would just send the clean version.
Yeah,
And if someone asks, you can have the old version. Okay.
so motion recommend approval of the draft solar ordinance dated 8/12/22 with the edits as noted in that draft and the subsequent 2 edits as noted by Paul in the tape previously. Recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, there's nobody else to vote to oppose. So moved. Great. Just in time with all the new legislation. Next order of business is Act 167.
So we had met last month and we kind of went over some highlights of the changes, some of the mandatory language. And I think by and large, you as a township as a whole were comfortable with generally what you had. So what you should have before you is the updated version. I believe it's dated, you'll see August 19th. When you get into the actual pages, the cover is dated June 2nd. But as you get into one of the technical pages, there you go. Thank you. You'll see they have the August 19th at the top just to kind of keep everybody on the same page. And we made the edits. There's a couple of things we still have to check with some of the appendices. There's just 200 pages to this document. We'll also check and update perhaps the fee schedule and a couple of little odds and ends when it gets to the board level. But we call this, as the memo from Jessica indicates, a 95% document. She's on the line tonight also. So I don't know how much discussion you need. I don't know if Jessica has any other comments to add, but I'll just let her say a few things and then we'll see what you would like to do.
Great.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm on the phone line, so just want to make sure. Yeah, as Pete indicated, I feel like this is at about a 95% completion. We do need to kind of tweak a couple of appendices, specifically the O&M agreement appendice. So we're going to work through that. The other appendices are pretty much going to just remain as is, meaning the simplified approach appendice, which is Appendix A, since the township had agreed they don't wish to change that from how the ordinance is written now. And then the other appendices B, C, and D are pretty much dictated by DEP as far as the language is concerned, and they're pretty much what was in the ordinances previously. So there's really no big changes there. Something that I want to point out briefly is that we did get some clarification regarding O&M requirements. I think, and I apologize, I might be mixing up some of our clients' wishes a little bit. I apologize, but one of the big concerns I think has always been with this updated model ordinance is the inspection schedule, the frequencies going to be required for those smaller projects, that are a simplified approach project, meaning, is the township going to be required to go in and inspect these facilities on an annual basis or what have you? And the answer actually is no. And I did get clarification from Chester County on that. For the simplified approach designs, the inspection requirements can be modified. So I just want to kind of maybe clarify that for everyone. So we'll make sure that that's incorporated into the O&M agreement samples. And of course, that is something as, can always be revised to fit a specific project as needed, maybe for certain circumstances. So I just wanted to point that out. And
I'll just interject if I can, Jessica. That's a big deal because the big projects pay into a fund for inspections. So as for a land development plan, you guys haven't had one in an awful long time of size to qualify for that, but funds would be covered. The concern we had was if this inspection thing was triggered for even the small projects. Now, when mom and pop come in, you're putting money up. Or the township has to fund those inspections. The sheer quantity of those inspections would just drive homeowners nuts. So I think that's very good information that Jessica was able to learn that that's not applicable to the small projects for that reason. You could make it, I guess, if you wanted to. I wouldn't suggest it, but that's obviously a choice up to the board ultimately.
So are you asking us to make a recommendation on those to the board tonight, or what's our goal tonight for this?
I think your goal is to make a recommendation to the board that I'll say by and large you agree with the 95% version. There's a few things that again, as I mentioned, Jessica mentioned, we have to just cross-reference and check. It's just so voluminous, but I think at the end of the day, substantially it's the same. It's very similar to what you had before, and it's not, there's not a concern from the day-to-day activities, at least that we were aware of, I believe Jeff would be aware of, that we had to modify. They clarified a lot of the small things in this ordinance from 5 years ago through the various seminars and group discussions and things. And I believe some of the board members had attended some of those seminars. So it's just, I think it's time to pass it on. Ultimately, the township does need to enact the new 167. So the first step of that is obviously you as a planning commission make the recommendation, and then it goes to the board. So if you think you're comfortable with it tonight, being that knowing it's not quite a final document, but I think from your input level, it's pretty much done, at least in my opinion, Dave. And then you just recommend it to the board and you're done with it.
So whether it's part of the recommendation or not, I think I know I'm inclined to have less inspections for smaller projects.
Yeah, I won't disagree with that. I would think that's the way to go. You don't want to be too tough on mom and pop. At least that's been the approach.
I recall the first time around, we requested everything that was as lenient as possible because it's a pretty onerous document, and we felt like our township, because we're not as developed as other places, we felt like we were kind of over the top already
Yeah, if you had an administrative machine in place, like a bigger township, but you've got 3 people. It's just, it's not cost effective for us to do it, or a consultant, I'll say in general for mom and pop. It would just be so voluminous on compared to all the other day-to-day stuff a township has to deal with. It's just not worth it.
Okay. So Jessica, what's the next?
So I do have some questions early on. I don't know if we're going to go through.
Sure.
Okay. 102 is hilarious that the governing body finds that, and then they tell us what we found. I think that's amusing, but beyond that comment, 105, we just saw this with the Richardson project. The applicability, I don't know that the grindings that expanded their impervious surface fall into any of the activities that are listed there under applicability. What's your opinion?
I'm
Well,
not sure I followed.
yeah, I'll take that, Jessica.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that'll be an interesting discussion we'll have at some point, Chuck. But in that case, what they did is they, graded earth, disturbed earth, and put down the millings. So that would have triggered from a square footage disturbance standpoint. And then you could maybe debate whether the millings are impervious or pervious. But that's going to be an interesting discussion for a different day.
What if, well, I just kind of want to hear what you're thinking, because what if they didn't disturb the earth? What if they simply put it over top of what was there? Is that considered? There's nothing here that says you can't just add impervious surface that I can see, unless it's attached to construction.
Well, some of this is, I'll look to Jessica at some point here, but some of this is the mandatory language that we can't modify. But I would think we have somewhere to look and point to say you added impervious cover, whether you lay it on top of the ground or not, because somebody will come along and add more impervious or place brand new asphalt, not millings, on top of those millings because they want a paved parking lot instead.
Right. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate. And then my next statement or question would be, shouldn't we be forcing PennDOT and or others that do road work to properly dispose of the millings? Because what they're doing is they're simply leaving it here in the township, and those millings have no purpose other than to expand impervious surfaces on people's property. It's so they're not the only ones that are doing this right now. And the reason they're doing this right now is because we got all this road work going on. So we have a bunch of landowners that kind of were given this opportunity by PennDOT. And then we turn around and say, you can't do that. But PennDOT's creating the problem. I don't know if that's a Pete question. I think it's more of, I just want to say it out loud to the board, because they're not the only ones doing it. And we're gonna see a number of properties that have grotesquely expanded impervious surfaces.
Yeah, I'll say it's akin to when there's a large construction project and everybody wants extra fill put on their property. Contractor wants to take it somewhere close, and unless you're monitoring that, things get expanded real quick. I got a ravine, I fill it in, now you filled wetlands. So yeah, it's very similar with the millings. Oh, I want to expand my parking lot. Can I get a truckload? Oh, sure. And somebody just does it. So yeah, those are some policy decisions, like with township crews. You could say, no, we're not allowed to do that. We have to take it to XYZ site. What PennDOT does, PennDOT does. So I think that's something you'd have to take up with your municipal services rep and say, hey, we don't, but practically it's very tough to enforce that. But I understand fully what you're saying, Chuck.
Okay.
I agree that I understand what you're saying, Chuck, but it's quite obvious to us because all this road work was happening just now, and there happened to be a plan come before us that at this time we might, if they did this after we approved the plan, they'd be having a nice little paved area right around their barn, and we'd never pay attention to it. And it probably, and it obviously happens more than we know or pay attention to, and not just with millings, but people can bring in fill or stone from a quarry, maybe not to the degree that the Richardsons did, but definitely it would trigger this ordinance if they asked.
If they asked, yeah.
But it's similar to where people put buildings up or additions and don't get permits, and unless somebody sees it or it's obvious from the roadway or you're at odds with your neighbor, a lot of stuff like that occurs just across the board with anything.
So then, should we be using historic Google satellite imagery to evaluate how much impervious the property has as opposed to what the surveyor observes?
Yeah, I would say as a matter of course, we do a desktop survey, go back through Google Earth in the various years, depending on what it looks like. Obviously, if it's a raw piece of ground, it's pretty obvious. If it's already developed or multiple times what's on it, that's where that imagery comes into play. You may or may not have survey data the first time around. But so, yeah, those are tools in the toolbox that we can use to kind of ferret out, well, hey, how did this occur? What did you do? And what about, and then each just has to be evaluated on a case by case basis, obviously.
Yep. Okay. That's all I had. It's just that it popped up. It was right there in my face. And I was like, I'm not sure if this even applies. And if it didn't apply, then I wasn't going to have those comments that I had last month at the next meeting. But if it does apply, then we need to know, what they're going to do about it.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, Mark, Chuck had the first 100 pages and you had the second 100 pages to review. So, do you have any comments?
Let me pull something here a second.
Jessica,
I'll get
did you
back
want
to
to go back to where we left off?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I don't know that I really have too many other, or if any other, major bullet points to make. I know that the O&M agreements are always a topic of concern as far as inspection schedules and responsibilities and monies. Beyond that, as Pete said, it's just kind of some final tweaks with some dates and, cross-referencing just to make sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. But again, to summarize, this really follows your existing ordinance and incorporates the required additions and deletions by DEP. So I think we're in good shape.
Are the four of us ready to make a recommendation to forward this draft to the Board of Supervisors? I would say forward this draft with our comments that we feel the current ordinance as stands has been working well, and to where their options are for the township to make a choice that they're the least onerous as possible.
I'm ready if somebody wants to make a motion.
You realize I came in late, right? This is John Gonzalez. Did you catch me coming in late?
We've seen you there, John. I'm sorry I didn't make,
Oh,
we
no,
can get it
that's
from the
okay.
minutes of when you joined us, or from the video when you
Yeah,
joined.
I kind of got sidetracked, but no, I agree. We should move it forward and make it as minimum different to what we currently have and make it less onerous as possible. So I agree with you and Chuck.
Anybody want to put that into a motion?
Whew.
How about if I state, Franklin Township Planning Commission recommends to the Board of Supervisors. Well, let me scratch that. I recommend that we advance the stormwater management ordinance draft dated August 19, 2022 to the Board of Supervisors with the recommendation that we make the new ordinance as similar to our current ordinance, and where options are available to the township, they choose the least onerous options.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I think, yeah, we're on to public comment. All right, there being none, we'll adjourn at 7:45.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks,
Thank you.
Paul,
Thank
for
you.
doing the AV.
All right, thanks, everybody. Quick one.
Thank
We
you.
got to get the board meetings done in 45 minutes. How do we do that?
Have a
Not
good night,
sure.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Let me just end.